And when you follow as much pro wrestling that is being provided nowadays, you will never go hungry. There's a saying that I've become a fan of, and it's a man or woman with many tastes will never go hungry. I look at it in this sense. If you're a fan of AEW and you enjoy that they are a much more wrestling focused product. We saw just on last week's episode of Dynamite the opening matchup for the International Championship between MJF and Will Ospreay ran for 59 minutes and 58 seconds. That was just one match, the opening match of the show. And it was more wrestling than Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown had provided for audiences. We know that AEW, the slogan goes, it's where the best wrestle. That's what they want to promote. That's the image that they want others to see. And that's okay. Versus that of the WWE, who have been known to be much more on the sports entertainment aspect. They like to dramatize their stories. It is very story driven first, and then of course there's wrestling involved. It's a little bit of a balance between the two worlds. Me personally, I look at the sense of tribalism, and where does it really come from? I think in the sense of even sports teams. Why do we devote ourselves to sports teams? Because we want to be a part of something. I think it's that feeling of belonging to a like-minded group, a like-minded community that we all can feel comfortable in. This goes all the way back to the times of the territories, I think. You'll look at how in pro wrestling, you had your territories in Texas with the Von Erichs, in the Florida, then you had the Briscoes. Of course, you would have Atlanta with WCW, that's where it was founded. You would have Jim Crockett Promotions. Then up in the northeast side of the country, that's where you had your McMahons. There was a little bit of everything for everyone, and it was that sense of pride in that community. Then the WWE would branch out and become one of the biggest companies, not only just in pro wrestling, but in combat sports, really, and that we had seen. In that time, you would see the styles begin to clash. Down south, professional wrestling was seen as sport. It was seen as a legitimate competition. It was all about the athleticism between the two combatants, or however many individuals were involved in the matchup. Whereas up north in the WWE, very sports entertainment drawn. They focus more on the glitz, the glamour. It was much Hollywood in the sense of its presentation. You look at in WCW, again, Jim Crockett Promotions, when it evolved into WCW, they focused more in ring. You didn't have a lot of entertainment, a lot of story driven until the mid 90s when Nitro was introduced. And you saw guys like the NWO, like the evolution of Sting. That was very much as a way to compete with the WWE. When the WWE essentially ran WCW and ECW out of business, essentially, they would purchase them and they would fold into the WWE brand. There was a period in time for 20 years that there wasn't really a legitimate competition for the WWE. Yes, there was Ring of Honor. Yes, there was TNA Pro Wrestling. There was New Japan. There was Noah. There's AAA, CMLL. A lot of other wrestling promotions to pick and choose from. But in that 20-year span, there wasn't someone of the caliber of a WCW. And that in line with the problem of what happened during those 20 years. Pro wrestling became a little bit of stagnant. It became it was routine. You knew what you were expecting. There was no one to push the WWE to their limits. Then came AEW. When All Elite Wrestling opened its doors, it provided an alternative that we had not seen for quite some time. It allowed wrestlers to have another source of income, another land of opportunity to take advantage of and to further their career, essentially. With the development of AEW, not only did it allow wrestlers to have a choice on where they wanted to go, but it gave fans an opportunity to see something different, to see an alternative brand, that pro wrestling didn't all have to fall under the umbrella of the WWE stigma. And there is where the tribalism began. You had those who loved the WWE and loved the product and loved the presentation and loved everything that came with it. But then there were those, and rightfully so, I feel like I should preface, the emotions felt on both sides are valid. Because for the time being, the WWE had began to grow stale. There were those really tough years when you really couldn't watch it and enjoy it for what it was. You know, you look back at the Roman Reigns run, for example, in 2019 when Baron Corbin had dumped all the dog food on Roman Reigns. It was a tough watch. It was like, what had happened to this sport that I loved? And when AEW came around and presented it as a legitimate sport, essentially, that allowed all these fans that were turned away from the WWE to latch on to something new, to something fresh. But I think over the course of time, people have lost sight of what makes pro wrestling so damn entertaining, and it's the variety. On any given show, there's anything that you could ask for. You want comedy? It's there. You want drama? It's there. You want tension, suspense. All elements are explored in pro wrestling. So when it comes to tribalism, when it comes to that idea of one is better than the other, I do agree with the sense that we all have our preferences. Some people really enjoy that AEW is so focused on in-ring work, whereas others really enjoy the character work that the WWE focuses on. Me, myself, I personally line up with this idea. I look at the two individuals who are competing in a match, and I think, why? Why are these two competing? Why should I be invested? What is the cause of this, and what are the possible ramifications that will come out of this matchup? I personally think that no one does it better than the WWE at this point in time. The way they are able to structure a story and have it intertwined throughout a single night has proven to be second to none. Not only that, but the production value that they have is immensely better than anything we've seen. However, on the flip side, you look at All Elite Wrestling, and these guys are able to provide quality matchups regardless of what the story is entailed. They are able to provide phenomenal matchups. Again, you look back at this past week's Dynamite, MJF versus Will Ospreay, which was a controversial matchup for some reason all over the internet. It was one of those divisive topics in pro wrestling, and believe me, we have plenty of divisive topics in pro wrestling nearly every day.